Welcome to this lecture. So now we want to look into how can we try to create scatterplots, right? So we have been using geo_point, right? So in this case, we want to examine certain relationship between two variables. So that is the whole concept behind scatterplots. So in this case, let's say we want to examine the relationship between displacement and miles per gallon, right? So if we come here and say ggplot, right, and you specify data, right, and you come in here and say geo_point, right? Now what you want to do here is that we can also specify the aesthetics inside geo_point function, right? So what do I mean by that is that we can also specify, say for example here in the x-axis we want the displacement, right? So we're gonna come and say this is disp, okay, and then in the y-axis we want miles per gallon. So let's try to run this. So you observe that we can also specify the aesthetics inside this function. Don't forget that, right? So this here is a relationship between miles per gallon and displacement, right? So you observe this when the displacement is high, the miles per gallon seems to be low, right? So as you observe here with these 2 points, right? So this is how, an example of a basic scatterplot, right? Now, what if you have a very huge data set and you want to avoid overplotting, right? So in that case, you can make use of a jitter plot, right? So you come here and you specify position, right? And you say position argument, right? So in this case, you will pass in jitter, right? So in most cases, a jitter plot is simply just to avoid overplotting. So this becomes even more useful if you have huge data sets. So if you run this, so this is a way in which you can add a random noise to a plot and make it easy to read. So that is when you specify position, which is your jitter, right? So now we want to begin to modify the appearance of the points, right? We can do one thing where we specify values and map them to variables where we use the aesthetic function, right? So let's start with colors. Okay, so let's come here and say we want to make these colors to be, let's say for example we want to make these colors to be, let's say we want blue color. So if we run this, so we've changed the color of the points. So the points are now blue, right? So what you should also keep in mind in this case is that the color argument should be outside of aesthetics. So you observe here that we have specified this color argument outside aesthetics. What happens if you specify it inside aesthetics? So let's see what happens. So if you come here and you try to specify color inside aesthetics function. So let's fix this and see what happens. So if you run this, now from this result, you observe that what we wanted is we wanted to change the color of the points to be blue, but it's not doing what we want. Okay, so you should be careful with that. Color should be outside aesthetic function. That is because it does not refer to any variable inside the data set. So if you run this again, so this here now is what we want. We want the color of the points to be blue, right? We can also modify the transparency of the color, right? Where we make use of alpha argument. So this argument takes value between 0 and 1. So let's see what do I mean by that. So if you come here and you come here and say after color, what I want to do is I want to say alpha and let's say 0.4, right? So what we're doing here is that this argument is used to modify the transparency of the color, right? So let's run this. So you observe here that the transparency of the color has changed from previously, right? So let's try to change this value. Say for example, we use, remember it takes values from 0 and 1. So let's say we use 0.6. So observe that the transparency is changing, right? So the more transparent the points become the more transparent the points become if we decrease the value we pass to alpha argument. You should also take note of that. Okay, so now what about the shape? So we've been doing the shape. So I'm going to remove this, right? So what about the shape, right? So now let's say we want, say for example, we want shape. Say for example, let's use tree, right? And if you run this, so you observe now we have changed the shape of these points. So after changing the shape, we also want to see the size, right? So we come here and say size. Let's say for example we use 3, and if you run this, you observe that the shape of the point is changed as well as the size, right? So if we come here and say let me remove this, right? And let me run this. So now you see based on here that the points have changed because I've just removed the shape. This was this argument was for changing the shape, but now I wanted to demonstrate the size argument. You can also change the shape of your points just to make them even more clear, right?